the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Locked On Cardinals. Brack, Alex Clancy. Thank you for tuning in to our new YouTube channel. It's been officially a week since we started this thing up, and we are excited about the content that's going on and your guys' interaction, tuning in and watching. Thank you so much. Big happy Father's Day to all those from yesterday, of those listeners who are fathers, dads out there. Let me tell you this episode, it's brought to you by Rock Auto. Great sponsor on the heels of Father's Day. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them that Locked On Cardinals sent you. Real quick, Alex, let me tease the show. We'll get into some quick convo here about why this is a wild day here for the show, for the podcast, for our lives. The Arizona Cardinals have a big-time option at cornerback, potentially. We'll get into a veteran corner who's just an absolute stud who could be on the trade market. Kliff Kingsbury is the latest Arizona Cardinal to be ranked. We'll see where Kliff is ranked, our thoughts about it. Does the disrespect continue for the Cardinals? And then Kyler finally gets respect on his name, but is he ranked appropriately or is it too high? Yeah, I mean, we're going to be picky like that. Are we going to be like, well, maybe if he's ranked that high, maybe it's too much. But I will say this. I'm going to reveal this, and we've talked about it a little bit. Later today, I'm going to become a dad. My wife and I were going in. We're going to have our first child. We are absolutely just elated. We're pumped. It's surreal. I don't know what I'm doing. You're like, why are you here? Because everything's good. It's been scheduled for a while. You don't want to know any other details. But my wife is in a good spot. She's ready to pop. And we are ready to become a family of two, turn into three. I am just like forever grateful for everybody that listens because, I get to, this is the best part of my day. It's now going to become the second best part of my day, but just so pumped that our family's growing, so excited. And I'll share a pic as soon as everything goes down later today.
Yeah, I feel like this would be the exact same if I put a mic in front of you after it happens, just like putting a mic in front of Kyler Murray after DeAndre Hopkins caught that catch. Just kind of like, it's great, and I'm glad he caught the ball, and what now? No, you're going to be a great dad, man. This is good news, and really excited to be able to get to do the podcast by myself for a couple days.
Yeah,
it's going to be a beautiful thing. It really is.
Thank you. We appreciate it. And as I said, like, this is my favorite part of my day. And this is to be able to get to talk to you guys each and every day and that we can, I can bring a child in this world and he can be a part of this, something that Alex and I are growing and that we're very proud of. It just, I don't know, it just goes hand in hand. And you guys are a big part of that. And I appreciate every single one of you guys, even Alex Clancy. I appreciate you, man, and I love you, brother. And this is just the beginning. I mean, I'm not going to be Phillip Rivers. We're going to probably cap it at 2. But I'm not going to be Antonio Cromartie. But this is just the beginning of just this entire thing. So a big thank you to everybody that listens. I'll be back probably by the end of the week. Also today on the Locked On NFL podcast, Alex and I are kind of previewing the Cardinals like pre-training camp. The Locked On NFL podcast, they wanted us to kind of preview each team. Just went alphabetical. Alex and I, we broke it down and had some interesting thoughts. It's not all roses. It's not all us just guzzling Kool-Aid as we kind of keep it real on this podcast.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to see some improvement. What the big thing that we've seen, and we talked about it on Locked On NFL with Bo hosts on Mondays, is we've seen a culture shift. And that's one thing that's happened for sure. Patrick Peterson is no longer here. Larry Fitzgerald is still up in the air. We've had some additions of some guys that were the Larry Fitzgeralds of other organizations join the Arizona Cardinals. It's a make or break year for Kliff, make or break year for Steve Keim, and we'll see if Kyler Murray can take that step. But exciting things are happening, regardless of if it's not all rainbows and butterflies. It's going to be exciting to watch regardless.
It is interesting when you go from because we've been doing it for months now to talk about this offseason and everything that they've done. There's a level of excitement to it, but then you get a little weary once you start to get to predicting and looking ahead to the regular season, because this is a huge moment in this franchise's history to where they need to take a big step. And if they don't, the group that we know now isn't going to be the one that we're going to get to know in the future.
Yeah. I mean, this could look like a very, very different organization come 2022. Kyler's going to be there. Buddha's going to be there. The inside linebackers are going to be there. And you think DeAndre Hopkins will be there unless some sort of catastrophe happens. But there's really not that many surefire this player will be an Arizona Cardinal come 2022. There could be a lot of moving parts. Chandler Jones, J.J. Watt. Who knows if things don't go well.
Yeah, and you mentioned Chandler Jones. I saw a trade proposal because Xavier Howard of the Miami Dolphins, a guy who had 10 picks last year, one of the best corners in the league, a ball hawk, 7 picks in 2018. In 2019, I think he only had 1, but he only played in 5 games. But last year, playing opposite Byron Jones, he was just a madman out there. And apparently, he's not happy in Miami because he's not being paid like a top 5 corner, even though he absolutely is. I don't think anybody will argue that. So people are playing quick connecting the dots. The national media still believes that there's like some sort of dysfunction between Chandler Jones and the Cardinals. So they just played easy, quick connecting the dots, and they put together a trade proposal, Chandler Jones for Xavier Howard. You very rarely see that. You bring up the trade all the time, player for player. It's happened like once successfully in the league's history with Clinton Portis for Champ Bailey. But I would say this. Miami needs to do everything within their power to not let Xavier Howard exit that organization. He's under contract. I don't see anything happen. Like, there's big expectations in South Beach. I don't see any reason why they let a player of Xavier Howard's caliber leave.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Miami's on the rise. It seems like we'll see what happens with Tua if they made a mistake by passing on a quarterback this year. In case, if Tua is the guy. They've got a strong, we talk about foundations. They've got a strong foundation over there, especially compared to what it's been for the last Tom Brady era. This is the AFC East is getting more and more difficult than you'd think after Tom Brady exited. But yeah, man, that defense is legit. And I don't know why it's a weird time, unless there are some things that are happening that we don't know about. It's a weird time to be complaining just after you signed a contract.
Yeah. Well, it's just because you start to move the goalposts a little bit as far as we've seen. What was it? There was the one off season where I think it was like Joe Hayden, Richard Sherman, Patrick Peterson, and they were all one-upping each other as far as who's the highest paid corner. And it continues to happen. It's going to happen again. Jamal Adams is going to become the highest paid safety after Budda Baker took home that title last year. And then Justin Simmons just bested him in Denver. So you're always seeing a change in a guy like Xavier Howard. When you put up 10 picks, I say, yeah, might as well go out there and negotiate, but be realistic. Like, do you want to go elsewhere? You're in a pretty good spot with Miami. You're playing opposite somebody in Byron Jones, who's really good, who signed a big deal. I don't disagree with that. I still think that if they are going to bolster this cornerback position group, it's going to be Stephon Gilmore. That's the more realistic move, because the Patriots are more, willing to part ways with a guy who just basically held out a mandatory minicamp.
Yeah, we still go back to this, and it's just the Cardinals are a good fit for any corner that can play cornerback at a somewhat reasonably high level. And Stephon Gilmore, his price tag has seemingly never been lower. There were rumblings about him potentially going for a first-round pick, then wanting and then a second-round pick. I don't even know if it would take that much at this point if New England wants to move on from him. Who knows if they're going to run it back, and they've got this offensive little pop now we'll see what happens with Mac Jones, but they brought in the brothers tight end, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with them in the defense with Donta Hightower coming back. That defense is always going to be good.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Stephon Gilmore would find a better spot than where he is right now. Obviously money plays sometimes, but I don't think the Cardinals would extend him after. He's only got 1 year left on his deal. I don't know if the Cardinals would extend him if they traded for him.
But you can kind of follow the blueprint of Tampa. Like, they had a bunch of guys that were in, their final years of their contracts or on 1 year deals. And then when it worked and, most guys bought in and they wanted to run it back, they just re-signed him. I mean, that's kind of what happened. So the Arizona Cardinals can set themselves up and not kind of lock themselves into some long contracts with some guaranteed dollars on some guys that are, aging out of the league. I don't have a problem. All you really need to do is this season, if you put Stephon Gilmore opposite Malcolm Butler, I mean, you're just exponentially better. It's Locked On Cardinals, part of your Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A big piece of that is the head coach, Kliff Kingsbury. He was ranked. We talk about a lot of disrespect surrounding this organization, but I think this one is actually one we're going to agree with. We'll tell you where K2 is ranked. Plus, Kyler Murray later on, he's finally getting the respect he deserves, but of course, we're going to probably take issue with it. It's Locked On Cardinals. Devin Booker, 40 points and a triple-double yesterday. Suns take game 1, go off king. 6-point favorites at home. Tuesday night's game 2. You like that?
That's a lot.
That's a lot of points. Absolutely. Maybe they know that Chris Paul is coming back or not. Bet online, fastest, easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season in full swing. Bet against the D-backs. Easiest way to make some cash these days. Get all the latest news, odds, and info for your sporting needs. Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, UFC, MMA action. They've got it. Before the next pitch, head over to Bet Online on your laptop, your mobile device. Check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game. Head over to the website, betonline.ag. Use your cell. Sign up today. Receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, your online sportsbook experts. So we had a blast yesterday. We joined Ross Jackson, Cody Rourke on the live Sunday Locked On NFL. And I think that lives on YouTube. I think you check that out. Alex and I had a blast with Cody and Ross. And Cody asked us a question at the end of it about Kliff Kingsbury and a funny story involving him and Sean McVay and how he asked McVay for a field pass for one of his Instagram model girlfriends. And that kind of transitions us into the conversation about Kliff Kingsbury being ranked by Cody Rourke's network that he works for, the Pro Football Network. And Kliff Kingsbury was ranked the 23rd head coach in the NFL. And I think that's probably about right. I think that's about right. It's interesting to think that there are, 8 coaches not ranked ahead of Kliff Kingsbury, but there's new guys in there, then they won't rank them ahead of Kliff Kingsbury. But I'll say this, Alex, Kliff Kingsbury will not be ranked below 23rd. It'll never happen. He'll never fall, because if his performance doesn't have him rise the ranks, he's gone. He's not going to be head coach to be ranked next season. I think that's my opinion on it. I just think if Kliff Kingsbury doesn't prove that he's better, 23rd or better, he's done.
There are a lot of NFL coaches that have done a lot more with a lot less. Over the last decade, where the game has started to change. It's become quarterback centric, where you protect the quarterback. Usually major penalties, the offense is protected, and it's always the defense that's a bad guy. Quarterbacks have done a lot more with a lot less. And this is the year. It's the crap or get off the pot year. I thought last year should have been it, but them winning 8 games, them being so front heavy in the season, obviously saved him for another year. I don't know if them making the playoffs will be enough this year. It depends on how the season goes, obviously. But you're right. Your statement's correct. I mean, he's not going to be the 25th ranked head coach in the NFL to start 2022 for the Cardinals. It's not going to happen. He has help with leaders on the field now that he didn't have last year, which may help, may not help. Who knows? J.J. Watt is going to be a huge impact for this team on the field last year. The Cardinals didn't have a great defensive leader on the field last year. Budda Baker is great, but he's still not that everybody look at me, I'm going to lead this team. We see it now. But last year, it wasn't necessarily that. And then we'll see what happens with Kyler. And, hopefully it doesn't come down to them losing to 2 backup quarterbacks in the last 2 weeks of the season, them getting ousted in the playoffs.
I just think that
outside of the playoffs,
Kliff Kingsbury is going to benefit the most from Rodney Hudson, that acquisition. I just do. I mean, maybe. You're not going to have those mental mistakes from your starting center that you experienced from Mason Cole. And even just his play wasn't that great It wasn't that stellar. And just to have a guy out there that can be the leader and just kind of the anchor of that offensive line, it's going to be huge for a team that was so heavily penalized last season. And they overcame a lot of penalties early on, but then down the stretch they couldn't. They just didn't have the personnel. They didn't have the playmakers that were up to the task doing so. I think Rodney Hudson can be one of those guys that just makes Kliff Kingsbury look like he's got a disciplined bunch. And if they're not, then yes, there's a big issue there.
Yeah, I mean, and one thing, I mean, let's be real here. He came in to run an offense and to score points and to score touchdowns from the wide receiver position, throwing the ball from Kyler Murray.
Yep.
How many teams you think would yearn for this receiving core, regardless of how many, how unproven it is, whether it be Christian Kirk, who hasn't taken that step, or AJ Green not being relevant the last 2 years, Rondale Moore not being healthy the last 2 years, and DeAndre Hopkins being underutilized and having about 1,500 receiving yards last year. Like, how many teams would be like, yep, we'll take it? Probably a third of the NFL. So it's not like he doesn't have any weapons, I mean, and this is the year where you're going to have a speedy receiver, whether it be Rondale Moore or Christian Kirk. You're going to have a cagey, aging veteran with great hands. He's 6'4". He runs every route in the route tree, and he's a great red zone threat. And AJ Green, regardless of how fast he is. And you have DeAndre Hopkins, pound for pound, the best receiver in the game, in my opinion. And you have Kyler Murray, who, according to some, is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL going into 2021, which we'll discuss in a minute. He has all the tools he needs for this offense to work. Compared to the have-nots, the Cardinals are a have, at least a have light, to be able to score a lot of points this year.
There are only two coaches, two of them, on this list that were not head coaches last year. Everybody else behind Kliff Kingsbury on these rankings are all rookie head coaches. David Culley of the Houston Texans is 32nd. Urban Meyer somehow is 31st. I would already give the edge to Urban if you're going just, X's and O's, mind against mind. Dan Campbell is 30. How is Dan Campbell ranked ahead of Urban Meyer? I don't understand that. Nick Sirianni, I don't know how he's ranked ahead of Urban Meyer. Maybe I'm believing too much in Urban Meyer. Arthur Smith is 28th. Robert Saleh is 27th. Brandon Staley is 26th with the Chargers. Only John Gruden and Zach Taylor are head coaches that were on the sidelines last year that are ranked below Kliff Kingsbury. So it's two. It's only two deep. Pretty telling.
I mean, John Gruden, that surprises me. I mean, I feel like he's a list guy. They say, well, they always figure it out. They win some games and some bounces go. They don't get injuries, blah, blah, blah. That's surprising that he's the one.
He's the one, and Zach Taylor, who is,
nobody could do anything with that. Like, come on. The bad rap that he got for last year was because his franchise quarterback went down.
Yeah, but he kept on dropping him back to pass, even though they didn't have any offensive line.
What are you going to do? It was a David Carr situation. I know. But that's the general manager. That's Jonah Williams getting hurt and having to reacclimate. That was them not drafting properly. And I think, drafting Jamar Chase to play offensive lineman, that's really going to help this year also, right? I mean, oh man, I don't know what, but I feel like Zach Taylor, it's like nobody could have done that much better of a job with Cincinnati than Zach Taylor did over the last 2 years.
And they signed, the big signing, like Riley Reif. It's like, there he is. That's our solution. He's good. Boy. It's the rankings continue though. We were just kind of all up in arms about recent rankings about Kyler Murray. Top 25, under 25. He was only 15th. You had Kyler Murray in the quarterback rankings. We had Budda Baker in the rankings. Now we have the Kliff Kingsbury ranking. Now a ranking that we can kind of get behind for Kyler Murray, but we do have our issues with it. We'll talk about it. We'll tell you about it. It's next. It's Locked On Cardinals. It's Bo. It's Alex. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On AZ Cards, at Clancy's Corner, at BLBRACK. For a limited time, if the supplies have lasted past yesterday, for Father's Day, Caramel Brownie is available at BuiltBar.com. It's the best tasting protein bar ever. Yeah, it's back. It's limited time. They always have great limited time flavors. Then they have the 9 delicious flavors you can always rely upon: coconut, almond, cherry, raspberry, mint brownie, peanut butter brownie, double chocolate, and salted caramel. But right now, it's the caramel brownie. Get on it. Go to BuiltBar.com. Not only are they the best tasting, they're healthy too. Most flavors have 17 grams of protein, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 4 grams of net carbs. Go to the website, builtbar.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off your first order. Use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at builtbar.com. Alex, your favorite sponsor, man.
My favorite sponsor, Rock Auto. I actually need to get some taillights, true story. And it's 130 degrees here in Arizona, 140 maybe. I'm not exactly sure. We live in a volcano. And I didn't want to go outside. I didn't want to go to a chain storefront. So I'm going to go to rockauto.com. One of my favorite basketball shorts. I'm going to go to my computer and I'm going to say, yo, I need taillights, man. This is the make and model of my car. Hook me up. rockauto.com, family-owned business. They've been online for 20 years. Everything's easy. Everything's at your fingertips. And you don't have to go and ask, Michelle or Michael at the chain store and like, hey, where do I find this? I'm a 37-year-old man who doesn't know anything about cars. rockauto.com, everything at your fingertips. Whether you're doing it for your daily driver, your weekend driver, whatever, rockauto.com's got you covered. They don't upcharge you because you're a do-it-yourselfer. You're not a manufacturer, which helps as well. The prices are reliably low for everybody. Go to rockauto.com right now. Write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box? So they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices. All the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
It's the Locked On Cardinals podcast, part of your Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I mentioned the Suns' big victory over the weekend. Brandon Clean, he's a must-listen to over at Locked On Phoenix Suns. He's breaking it down. The latest on Chris Paul. When he's getting back into the lineup, Brandon Clean's going to update you, plus some great analysis, some analytics. He goes kind of a little bit more stats-driven than Alex and I guess that's the way I'll say it. I won't say he's a nerd. I won't say
he's a great. So I've been texting him through the playoffs because it's just I was shocked, and I know we have other things to talk about, but are you surprised that people in Phoenix aren't ripping Chris Paul a little bit more than they are? Like, we don't know how he got COVID. They're like, well, It's a huge stadium. He's the only one that got it. Like, I feel like this is a veteran potential cover up to alleviate any sort of stress during a deep playoff run. Like, if they lose this series, it's on Chris Paul if he doesn't come back, in my opinion. But I was texting Brendan Clean about it, and he didn't have that thought process that we talked about. I'm like, man, I didn't think about it like that. Like, he's a really smart dude. That's the point of my story. Also a great follow on Twitter, as you mentioned.
So you won't tell me how he shed light on
kind
of ease your Chris Paul criticism?
Absolutely not.
All right.
Absolutely not.
Guess we'll just have to tune in the podcast.
My sources.
And figure it out. So Kyler Murray finally getting the respect he deserves. Ranked appropriately, maybe he's high. He's higher than Tom Brady on this list, and the list is made by Chris Sims of NBC Sports. He did his top 40 quarterback rankings. I love it because he used to dog on Blake Bortles, but then you see where Kyler Murray. So our guy Mike pointed this one out to us that Kyler was 7th on this list, and then he's releasing the rest of the list today. His top 4, I think, are released today. But as it stands right now, Kyler Murray is 7th. Tom Brady's 10th, Alex. I don't know if this is already disqualifying this list. Dak Prescott is 9. Matthew Stafford is 8. Kyler's 7. Lamar Jackson is 6. And Russell Wilson is 5. I think it's kind of a little bit of a trash list.
This is the best part. Like, we're officially in list season, which is great.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Justin Herbert hasn't been talked to. Justin Herbert's going to be top 5 in every offseason list. He's the new hot darling. It's going to be him, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and it doesn't even matter. Like, those are regardless. Kyler Murray at 7. You take it? I mean, he's been undervalued this whole offseason. He and Lamar Jackson pretty much have the same blurbs about them, but Lamar Jackson's ranked top 10 and Kyler's ranked in the 15 range.
Now that's where it kind of gives me a little bit of confidence in Chris Sims' ability and how he evaluates Kyler Murray. This is what he said, quote, "Where to start? I'm not sure if there's anybody that has more an effect on their team success on their offense than Kyler Murray. That's a bold statement, not saying he's the best quarterback in football, but man, does he have a tremendous effect because of his God-given talents to what their team is. Arizona is the number 7 team in football running the ball. It's because of one guy. Everything on their offense is predicated around the talents of this guy. He's got a rocket arm. He's cool and calm under pressure. He's different that way." I don't disagree with any of that.
Right. I don't, but this is the one thing that you and I have disagreed upon a lot this offseason, that as his legs go, the Cardinals go. And I think that it's there's a much more direct correlative between the two than people want to talk about. Sure, he has issues throwing intermediately. He's still learning the position, and he's handcuffed by his head coach in some capacity. And what I mean by that is Kliff Kingsbury's had as much NFL experience as Kyler Murray has. Except from when Kliff was in New England, eons ago, backing up Tom Brady. If the Cardinals are going to take a step forward this year, and if Kyler's going to run up the ranks, it's going to have to be more with his arm than with his legs, because his arm is less predictable than his legs. And I know he could get injured anywhere, but obviously behind the line of scrimmage, you have a little bit less chance of doing so as well. You can't really think about that, but Bo, as his legs go, the Cardinals go, has to dissipate in some capacity if the Cardinals want to take a step forward.
It's pretty scary to think about what Kyler Murray would look like, what the offense would look like if he put it together in year 3 with his arm, like Josh Allen did. Like the extra game, the weapons around him. He's already passed for 67%. Like, could he pass close to 70%? Could he complete 70% of his passes, still hit on the long ball like he does? Like his passing numbers would be absurd. I mean, we're talking about, with the 17th game, 4,500 yards isn't out of the question. Right. 35 touchdowns isn't out of the question, especially if he's not rushing for double-digit scores. I mean, those are pretty crazy numbers, but I think he's certainly capable of doing it.
Well, see, the thing is that if that happens, his rushing yards could stay the same.
Sure.
Because it's going to be more of a surprise attack, unless you have the read options and everything around. I'm not talking about in the red zone. I'm talking about between the 20s, where it's like, look, nothing, go. Like, that's what you want to avoid. And if he can have time to go through his progressions, like he will, you'd think more now with Rodney Hudson there, TJ Humphries another year in, probably peppering Josh Jones in, Kelvin Beachum another year in the system, his numbers could stay the same on the ground, because it's going to be more of a surprise attack than actual people expecting, than putting 8 in the box against a quarterback, making him throw. That's not something that you want if he's not comfortable doing it. It'll definitely keep the defense on his toes.
His name's Alex Clancy. Make sure you're following along on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow me at BOBRACK at Lockdown AZ Cards. That's going to do it for us. I'll talk to you guys in the next couple days. Be well. I'm so grateful for everybody that listens. Thank you so much. Enjoy Alex. Alex is going to have probably some great guests. If not, he's just going to have some great content, some great shows headed your way Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. And then I'll be back in the fold later this week.
People, look at Bo Brock as he is now. This is the most beautiful he's ever going to look. Because come daddy time, it's going to be incredible, dude. You're going to be a great dad. Congratulations. And we'll hopefully check in with you this week. And if not, early next week.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Alex. Thanks to everybody that listens. And we'll talk to you guys soon. It's Lockdown Cardinals, part of your Lockdown Podcast Network.